I want to clarify something about my last video. Many people left comments saying I have been duped by feminist motives. It was explained to me how paternity leave also benefits women, and how feminists don't care about men. Well look, I know that. I realize that paternity leave serves the purpose of helping women to break their gender role, by allowing men to break theirs. As I've said several times in past videos, so long as men are locked into their role, then so too will women be locked into theirs, to some degree. I'm aware that this is also a way of lifting the penalty women face for maternity leave and the threat of maternity leave being a cause for male hiring preferences. I understand the selfish motives of feminism. All those statements in my video, things like saying I owed Big Red an apology, was just me being a smartass. I forget that sarcasm and hyperbole doesn't translate well in text. My motive for those statements were not to actually praise feminism, but to exemplify how detrimental traditionalists are. Imagine me saying in a sarcastic tone of voice, good God people, traditionalism is throwing men under the bus, while feminism for fuck's sakes is accidentally doing us a favor, and you're still going to champion traditionalism, for reals and shit? It was brought up by someone that feminism doesn't care about fathers' rights, and feminism originally brought the tender years doctrine into existence. Well yes, this is all very true, I am perfectly aware of that, and again, was being sarcastic with any statement about feminism caring about fathers' rights. But this does not invalidate the fact that tradkins continue to praise the sanctity of motherhood and the maternal instinct, and insist on gender roles that make women the caregiver and men the walking ATMs, and that today the tender years doctrine is abolished and custody goes to whatever is in the child's best interest, and what is in the child's best interest is to go with their mother since mom was the one staying home all day, and we all know motherhood is sacred, and women make better caregivers, and the child needs money, so the walking ATM, the breadwinner, the father, needs to pay for the child his ex-wife has custody of, regardless of anything feminism does or doesn't do, has or hasn't done. These attitudes and their effect is from tradkins. Let's not use the rottenness of feminism to deflect blame from the rottenness of traditionalism. Just remember the rotten mocking attitude these fathers ran into when they wanted time off or took time off to be fathers, and realize that attitude wasn't coming from feminism. I had someone leave this comment, and I don't see paid paternity leave as helping men. It might help fathers, yes, but at the expense of men who chose not to have children. These policies spread the cost of caring for children onto people who do not have children, MGTOW, and they also incentivize men to reproduce and marry, which is bad for those men in the long run. Also, because single mothers are much more common than single fathers, offering equal amounts of parental leave to men and women will benefit mothers to a far greater degree than fathers, all at the expense of the childless. This is worse than the status quo of no paid leave for anyone. This is actually a really good point. It is a point that seriously needed to be made. However, I don't fully agree with it, and here's why. Fatherhood is a part of manhood. A father is a type of man. As for this helping him out at the expense of childless men, I disagree. It is not costing a penny out of the pocket of childless men. Taxes aren't funding it. Corporations are. If the argument is that it will raise the cost of the company's product, or force down wages to compensate, or get companies to pack up, then this is irrelevant because it equally affects men, women, parents, and non-parents. Again, I need to point out, the goal is not the attainment of a national utopia, it is the balancing of the scales of men in relation to women. Not all fatherless people are MGTOW. In fact, the overwhelming majority, something like 99.9999% of fatherless men are not MGTOW, or are at least not self-actualized MGTOW. And there is no shortage of fatherless male feminists and fatherless PUAs and fatherless pussy beggars. Furthermore, this does not incentivize men to marry. It in no way punishes fatherless men, or rewards fathers in a way that makes a life of marriage and children more beneficial than without. If an individual believes the rewards of marriage and parenthood makes his life better than without, that's whatever, but it is not being engineered by this policy. Next is your statement that there are more single-parent women than single-parent men, therefore the women benefit more. Well, women who already have children are not eligible, and when a woman gets knocked up, a man had to have done it, therefore that man, assuming he's employed with a company that offers these benefits, is also eligible. Now if the company states that this is only applicable to married people who have become parents, then this is a marriage versus bachelor issue, and we need to put it out there that this is bachelor discrimination. In fact, all people, not just MRA, who are unmarried, need to fight tooth and nail against all corporate and government marriage benefits. The married people should not be given unfair advantages over the unmarried. However, again, this would affect unwedded mothers as much as unwedded men, so in a direct way this is not an injustice against men. If it is a marriage-only benefit, this is bad for men indirectly because it discriminates against bachelorhood, which is the safer life choice for the male sex. But now we're comparing direct versus indirect, and it is only possible the stipulation applies to married-only people. And even so, like I said, there are already marriage benefits that discriminate against bachelors. Let's not throw too much of a shit fit when one of these benefits ends up doing men a little good. So in spite of what indirect consequences it may or may not have, this benefits the concept of fatherhood greatly, promotes the idea that fatherhood is more than paying child support, and that caregiving isn't a woman thing. Again, women already have maternity leave, therefore men should have paternity leave, and the pay and time off need to be equal. I want to jump back onto one part of your statement, that it benefits one group of people at the expense of others. As I said, it doesn't, but let's just look at the concept itself, because you brought this point up before with something slightly different. On a video I did way back, instantly I can tell that you are libertarian. Why should you be funding the lifestyle of someone else? Well, for the same reason you can make lifestyle choices funded by someone else. This is a question of should anyone receive any kind of funding for anything, from society? If you answer, no, never, then this is an argument against society. The reason humans form societies is because it gives them a survival advantage. Having a community provide you with opportunities that you otherwise would not have, allows you to exist with more flexibility and freedom of choice than if you were not a part of a community. The interdependency of the collective makes the collective stronger than the individual. This is why societies dominate over non-societies, and why it came to be that humans are herd animals that form societies. Now, as far as what people should get what choices, at whose expense, that's why we have politics. All in all, I say this, regardless of what your philosophy is on a society, the degree of collectivism versus individualism, and so on, until you have created a society where no one benefits at the expense of others, do not place a roadblock in front of men when it's their turn to benefit. For example, if women are getting maternity leave, do not fuss about paternity leave until you have abolished maternity leave. Do not bitch about tax-funded men's-only DV shelters until you have abolished all female-only DV shelters. Do not fuss about any male benefit until you have removed all female benefits. Someone else writes, question, why should the personal life choice of having a child give anyone the privilege of paid time off work? To answer the question, because it theoretically benefits the citizens. Corporations aren't people whose rights can be violated. They are utilities to serve the people. We as a society deem survival of the species, reproduction, as a positive thing. If the utility of work allows for us to live comfortable, but discourages us from breeding, then this utility must be modified to better serve the people. Furthermore, women already get parental leave. This is unfair to men. It is easier to force parental leave for men too, than to abolish it for women, due to the complexity of our culture and politics. Okay, done with that reply, I want to tackle something else. I hear that feminism is bad for business, because they are forced to pay for maternity leave. They create inferior employees via gender quotas, sexual harassment lawsuits. Okay, well, whatever happened to the old conspiracy theory that corporations pushed feminism because it was good for big corporation? Yeah, it doubled the labor pool and the big greedy corporations sure did love that. It doubled the amount of shopping and so on. Well, which one is it? Is feminism good for business or bad for business? Do you see the web you weave when you try to lift the blame of feminism from women and blame Big F, and Big Corp, or some other third party, to the greedy and misandrous behavior of the women you are white knighting for? Do you see the contradictions you weave when you attack feminism as an ideology from the viewpoint of another ideology, rather than attacking feminism as a thing women do, from the viewpoint of an MRA? The conservatives, libertarians and altogether right-wingers, blame communism, and show everything feminism has pushed for as being in line with communism, and everything the MRM pushes for as communism. That's because these fear of change traditionalists have defined communism as all things that involve change. To the right-winger, change is a synonym for communism, thus anyone not advocating a return to 1776 is a commie. Here's something interesting, the tradcan that says MGTOW is evil because we need a high output of babies, will be the first one to say no paternity leave because it will hurt businesses. So people are having less children because children are expensive, inconvenient, and are nothing but a burden to people's work, lifestyle, and financial resources. You see this lack of babies as a problem. But when things like daycare and paid parental leave are offered to help alleviate the burden of parenthood, you flip out and scream no no no, my taxes my taxes. Well, what do you want, taxes or babies? Take your pick. You have your cake and eat it, too greedy motherfuckers. Oh, I know, a man should do all the work and women should stay at home like queen bees popping out babies. Okay, are you going to abolish electricity and public schools and lift child labor laws? so that the children actually stay home to be looked after by the mother, and the house actually have some work to be done to it to justify the wife staying home, and children can be forced to earn wages for the family which will make them profitable, which will act as an incentive to actually have them like once upon a time. If you aren't willing to force us into being an Amish culture, please shut the fuck up, you Jurassic throwback, afraid of change. The rest of the world is a calendar, it's not 1776, we're moving forward. Good day to you. A similar subject to paternal leave being bad for business, is the insistence that any government handout for men is bad because of taxes. Big government, whatever. Let me explain something about the taxes. You're going to pay taxes no matter what, your taxes are going to get raised when they get raised. And that's that. When America wants to bomb some more Arabs, or pave the Middle East for Israel, your taxes get raised. End of story. The feminists are going to get women's shelters and women's programs because they whine, demand, and promise votes. Therefore they get something. Well then, let's whine, demand, and vote, and maybe we'll get something too, like equality. Oh, but then that will raise taxes. Okay, but it will raise women's taxes too, so it doesn't matter. It is better that men and women both pay 50% taxes, than for men to only pay 15% taxes, and women pay no taxes. The issue isn't taxation, it's equality between the sexes. I know what you're thinking, but if the government gives benefits to both men and women, that will break the system. Good, let it break. The system is currently geared to benefit women, so let it break. Furthermore, your attitude is why women get what they want. Think about it. The feminists say we want 2 billion in domestic violence shelters, and women-only job training. The politicians, anxious to earn that vote, looks at the budget, and says okay, we can just barely pull that off. If us men were to turn around and say hey, since you gave them what they wanted for their vote, we want 2 billion in domestic violence shelters and men-only job training programs too, and we vote for your opponent. If they get it, so do we. And instantly the politicians say look, we just don't have 4 billion in the budget, therefore, no one gets anything. Sorry. If you don't like the idea of ladies' night, then demand a men's night. Having to give free beer on Friday for women and Saturday for men, will be a strain the business can't take, so they will end ladies' night to shut us up. Of course the libertarians will holler no, forcing the bars to treat men and women equal is interfering with free market, and so of course the MRM cannot push for such a thing, and the end result is women get what they want, we get stuck with nothing. If paternity leave hurts business too much, then businesses pack up. Both men and women are affected by this. It may suck, but it's equal. Women are only allowed to have their special corporate and government handouts and privileges because us men will work like slaves and keep the overburdened system propped up. The system can handle 50% of its population getting greedy at the expense of the other 50%, it cannot handle the other 50% getting just as greedy, therefore the original 50% wouldn't have ever gotten a privilege. But men are too stupid to see that, they're too busy trying to be a hero and keep the system going. Don't you get it? If society is made up of two kinds of people, the selfish, and the selfless, the selfish people win. The selfish people always come out on top, but the selfish only get to come out on top. They only get away with it, due to the other half being selfless. If that selfless self-sacrificing 50% stopped being selfless, and got just as greedy, the other 50% can't win. The problem we now run into is a long-standing problem, the eternal weakness of the men's rights movement, the insistence that the male sex make every sacrifice under the sun for the good of the economy and not my taxes, god damn it, not my taxes. Example here being, now men will become a liability for companies, better than companies being a liability to men. Alright, I'll try to reduce the smart-ass retorts. So long as men and women are equal liabilities, then corporations have no reason to pick one over the other. Obviously this will bring up that if men and women both place burden on companies, it will hurt the economy. Companies must be free to do as they wish, or they'll pack up and go overseas. Well, I think I've already addressed this a few months ago when I said, let them go overseas and work the third worlders, and let them also sell to the third worlders too. Oh, that's right. When companies have people manufacture shoes for 25 cents an hour, those people can't afford to buy a $2 pair of Nikes for the inflated $300 they sell them for. What a dilemma. So we allow companies to put us out of jobs and give them to third worlders, and then happily and obediently buy their products, thereby rewarding these companies for putting us out of a job. Corporations are psychopaths by nature, and they will only treat us citizens right when we bust their nuts, shatter their knees, and force them to obey us. They say let us exploit you, or we'll pack up. They pack up and then we reward them by buying their $1,000 product, that cost $50 to make. So much for humanity doing what is in the best interest of humanity by voting with our wallet. We all know corporations love to pack up and go to nations that allow for the most horrendous exploitation, and that's why we have to back down and give our corporate masters what they want. Okay, well, how about we remove all regulations? We let corporations work us from sun up to sundown, no breaks, pay us whatever they want, whenever they want, if they even want, and we allow them to own people as slaves, own their workers' children as slaves, and do so under dangerous conditions and not be held responsible for the massive deaths these conditions cause. That way America fucking wins. All companies would pack up and leave the third world shitholes they currently exploit, and come to America. America will be the most industrial country in the world, and then we can live just like the third world as the corporations love to exploit. What's that? You don't want to be a slave, you actually want a paycheck? What are you, some sort of communist? In fact, in order to really give the corporations a hard-on, after we remove minimum wage, we can open up the floodgates and let all the Mexicans pour in for jobs. Corporations just love working those Mexicans for dirt cheap. I find that so ironic. I know not all free market fuckers are white nationalists, but pretty much all white nationalists are free market fuckers. They want the borders locked down, keep the darkies out, and yet it's corporations opening the floodgate all over Europe, loving their influx of laborers. But rather than realizing how this benefits corporations and why corporations support this immigration flood, they'll keep scapegoating Jews. And in some countries like America, corporate exploitation of illegal immigrants is 100% of the reason there are illegal immigrants. Of course that's because government regulations are forcing companies to pay a minimum wage that illegals can circumvent. Well then, in addition to lifting minimum wage, tear down the borders and open the floodgates because they can still work dirt cheap compared to the opportunities in their own country. What I am getting at is, the right wing is all mixed up, and ultimately, in all the confusion it's the corporations that ultimately win, not the people, just the corporations, and part of the reason men have no rights. All of society is constructed with the understanding that men are the plough horses, the laborers, the repairers of society. Anything that might benefit the plough horses, hurts production. Because remember, the maximization of labor is dependent on the level in which the plough horses can be exploited. Anything that benefits the slaves of a society will hurt the masters of that society. Again, it is men who must be willing to make countless sacrifices to keep the system running. The moment men begin to fight for something that benefits the male sex, we're all told how that will hurt the system, ironically, half the time, by anarchists and pseudo-anarchists who are anti-system. If a policy helps men, I see this as good. If it should cause economic troubles, that's not my problem. That's not a men's rights issue. The men's rights movement is not an economic movement to maximize the productivity of industrialization. Leave that shit to Wall Street. We're about pushing for that which benefits the male sex, in relation to the female sex. It is not about what benefits men in relation to animals, or what benefits black men in relations to whites, or in relation to Asians. It is not about what benefits Americans in relation to Canadians, or Christians in relation to Muslims or Jews. It is about what benefits men in relation to women. All other politics are someone else's problem. Let the gangsters that run the show figure it out. Let the Republican mafia and the Democratic mafia figure out how to balance their budget with the Zionists, foreign relations, national treasury, United Nations, the corporations. Let them argue floating the currency in China and all that other shit. Fuck 'em, it's their problem. Let the cultural Marxist socialist left and the corporate cock-sucking right fight it out in the style of the Catholics versus the Protestants. Let our nation's two competing mafia groups fight it out. It's not my problem. I shall make no sacrifice for them. Feminists make demands. They fight for what benefits women over men, and they don't care who it hurts or has to clean up the mess. That's why feminists get what they want. Men on the other hand can't move forward, can't budge, because our budging an inch and getting something that benefits us in relation to women, may inconvenience some part of the system, and then, oh my, who will clean up the mess? You men are still in this altruistic self-sacrificing mindset where you as a man are carrying the burden of humanity on your shoulders. Women make a mess getting what they want, and you scramble to figure out how you and your fellow man can clean up the mess. Well, I ain't cleaning up anyone's mess. You need to stop worrying about the best way to run a society. What benefits humanity, what benefits your race, your class, or your country. Stop doing that. Stop thinking like a hero, and start thinking like a person. And what I mean by that is, stop thinking it is your job to play hero and fix the world's problems. Men are dumb animals, they are plow horses, who take pride in being the best damn utility they can be. They risk their lives in war to protect the women folk. They risk their lives in combat to impress the pussy. They take a look at all of the problems of the world and try to figure out a better, more productive and beneficial system for humanity. Women are greedy. take what they want, break the system, and men have to scramble to prove their manliness to women, by competing against one another to figure out how to best fix the shit women broke. That's gynocentric male thinking, that's hero thinking, not self-thinking, not people thinking. We must think like people, not think like self-sacrificing animals. Men have great potential, but we never reach it due to male identity. Male identity is a matter of shaking your dick and saying mine is bigger, and thus can theoretically please a woman better, and thus my ability to better please women makes me better than you. It's men waving their money around saying I can buy women a more luxurious lifestyle. My ability to please them makes me better than you. It's men fixing the house, car, economy, political system, and saying my ability to fix shit makes me an excellent repairman to benefit women who love my utility. Women would much rather use me than to use you. That makes me better than you. It's men making sacrifices and saying I showed women my heroics with sacrifice. This makes me useful to women. My usefulness to women is greater than yours. Thus I am the better man. This is the male identity. It is centered on gynocentrism. If the male sex could surgically remove the gynocentrism from his brain, he'd be free, and reach his full potential. I want you to picture a scenario. A large group of men and women are on a boat. The men are rowing the boat. Hopefully we'll make it to shore before we run out of supplies. The women aren't rowing because they feel they're too good for this. They're also eating all the food they want, because they feel like it. We tell them stop eating all the food. We tell them to help us row. They stick their tongues out and tell us to quit crying. Man up already. Us men, rowing and rowing, begin discussing ways as men can make sacrifices to reduce our consumption of food. All the while the women are pigging out. We discuss among our fellow men the best way to row the boat. We discuss technique, and the possibility of building better oars. We talk about when to take breaks and how long to take them. We are strategizing and working. The women are munching away on the food supply and relaxing. The women tell us men, those of you who are really good at rowing, and really know how to stretch a meal for the greater good of the team, get access to my pussy. And this encourages the men to row double time and skip a few meals. I stand up and say enough of this shit. The women need to stop pigging out on our food, and they need to help us row the damn boat. The women tell us they ain't budging. I say then I am done rowing. They say then you get no pussy, and I say fine, I get no pussy, and the men still row the boat. I tell them they need to stop rowing. They say but someone has to row or we'll never make it to shore. The women echo that's right. Someone has to work like a slave for the greater good of the team, and it sure won't be us. So you male pigs keep on rowing, or we all die, and you fail because you let everyone down. It is at this point I am completely done rowing. I grab a sandwich and I start pigging out. I hereby declare that I would rather die than to lift a finger. If the women are going to be selfish and lazy, then we all die. I suggest we all just stop rowing and have ourselves a snack, and when we die, it'll be the fault of the women who think they're too good to make a team effort. Gentlemen, what I am telling you is, stop picking up women's slack, stop cleaning up their mess, and stop being a fucking hero. Us men need to fight for what benefits men in relation to women. In a way, it is claiming women are the enemy, but the way I see it, we are men's rights activists, not human rights activists competing against the privileges of animals. We are not competing against elephants and whales. It is not the right of dolphins in comparison to my rights as a man. It is not the rights of some extraterrestrial beings in relation to my rights as a man. It is not the rights of black-colored people, yellow-colored people, red-colored people, white-colored people in relation to my rights as a man. It is not rich people's rights or poor people's rights in relation to my rights as a man. It is my rights as a man versus the rights of women. Ergo, men versus women. I don't care about our borders, our economy, the size of our government, which political mafia wins the election, who wins the Super Bowl, the yen versus the euro versus the dollar, or any other miscellaneous bullshit. Enough is enough, god damn it. I'm tired of this shit already. We act like us men gotta grab our weapons and take to the street to fight the commies, fight the corporations, fight the socialists, fight the capitalists, fight the whites, fight the blacks, fight the Christians, fight the atheists, fight the Muslims, fight the Jews, fight the rich, fight the poor, fight the liberals, fight the libertarians, fight the conservatives, fight the anarchists, fight the authoritarians, fight the taxes, fight poverty. Fuck that shit. Us men have to stop this dividing bullshit, trying to play hero, save the animals, save humanity, save the world, save our race, save our country, save our economy, save the ozone. Fuck that. I am fighting for the male sex. I am trying to save the male sex, and I am tired of this weak ass shit of putting everybody and everything first, and if we have any time or consideration we'll see what we can do to balance shit between the males and the females. Fuck no, all that miscellaneous shit goes on the back burner, we'll worry about that some other time. All I care about is the rights, the fairness, the balance, between the men and the women, those with vaginas and those with penises, and if doing something to even the score and balance the power and treatment of men in relation to women, hurts the system, breaks the system, sinks the boat, I don't care, we'll drown, but so will the women, and if women don't want to drown, they should have thought of that before doing the shit they did, which forced us to do the shit we did, that sank the boat. No more of this women fucking shit up, and men having to work double time to keep the ship afloat. If these bitches don't want to die out here in the ocean, they need to grab oars and start rowing, because so long as they are sitting on their asses eating food, so am I, and so should you. I'll row when these bitches row. I'll conserve the food supply when they conserve the food supply. I'll skip a meal when they skip a meal. I'm tired of men doubling on their sacrifices so women can double on their benefits. This game ends. Bring me equality or bring me death. Since I am getting long-winded and repetitive by this point, let me give you a visual, and let this image burn into your mind. When I ask does something benefit men, I am not asking if the male sex, right alongside the female sex, benefits. I am asking do men benefit in relation to women. If a nation were to receive 50 pounds of gold, then both the men and the women receive 50 pounds of gold. So, alongside of women, men benefit. This is good for humanity, not good for men. Because both got an equal amount of weight, the ratio between the scales remains the same. If we remove 50 pounds of gold from both, this is bad for humanity because both lose. But it is not bad for men because the difference between men and women have not changed. It is only when weight is added to men, while not being added to women, that it benefits men. It is only by removing weight from women without removing it from men, that it benefits men. This is what I mean when I echo Barbara Sass's statement that women are the enemy. We have to look at what hurts us men, or helps us men, in relation to the only demographic of people we are in competition with, women. If taxes were raised by 10% tomorrow, I wouldn't be happy about that, but so long as women were also getting a 10% tax increase, it is not a matter the men's rights movement needs to concern itself with. If men's taxes were lowered by 5%, this would be a good thing. But if the same bill lowered women's taxes by 10%, then I would veto the bill, not because I don't want my taxes lowered, but because I don't want women to benefit more than me. If men are offered a raise, but only on the condition that women are given twice the raise, then this is a loss for men as it gives more to women. We must look at all loss and benefit that we men experience, in relation to the loss and benefit faced by women. Balancing these scales to make equal is the only thing that matters, no matter how we do it. You have to understand, whether it's leftist socialism and their cultural Marxism, or whether it's right-wingism with its traditionalism, conservatism, libertarianism, or anarcho-capitalism, all of these things are hostile to men. The reason for this is simple. All humanity is gynocentric, and our political philosophies are gynocentric as well. You can either be pro-male, or you are instantly by default anti-male. None of these ideologies have balancing the scales between man and woman as their goal. These ideologies might act benign, doing no harm to men, on the surface, but you let the government fund a men's battered shelter, or force corporations to pay men paternity leave, and that's when the anarchists and the libertarians and the free market motherfuckers shoot down this beneficial policy. Any effort to stand in the way of a policy that benefits men is an attack on men, and I don't give a rat's ass what your motive is, and you can argue they'd put down the same proposal for maternity leave, and I'm sure they would, but women still got maternity leave. The left gives women what they want, and the right stands there and forbids men to follow suit, and this is how the system works. The left privileges women, and the right wing shelters them. Example, the left says women are equals and can thus serve in military. Disagreeing with us is misogyny. The right says women must not be forced to die in the draft. Expecting women to be drafted is misogyny. The left privileges. The right forbids. It is women that the left privilege, and men that the right forbid. Gentlemen, divorce yourself from left-wing and right-wing politics. Both are horribly toxic to the well-being of men, and I'm not just talking about America's Democratic and Republican parties, but even the ideologies these parties represent. Divorce yourself from them. The men's rights movement is the only pro-male movement. MGTOW is the only pro-male philosophy. Divorce yourself from all other movements and philosophies, or you are tainted by gynocentrism. If you place any movement or philosophy ahead of the MRM and MGTOW, you are anti-male. Any of these political ideologies may be good for humanity, but until we are a pro-male culture, and we have already achieved equality, they can only act as deterrents for male equality, and are thus anti-male. Like I said earlier, you can bitch about men looking for a government handout, only after you have removed every female entitlement program there is. You may say it is better that men do not ask for male entitlement programs, but instead take away female entitlement programs. Fine, work on taking away female entitlement programs, and keep your mouth shut when MRAs are pushing for male entitlement programs. Push for male entitlement programs while vetoing female entitlement programs. Attack from both directions at once, like the feminists do. The feminists know men are the enemy. It is time we learned women are the enemy. To balance the scales, do we add weight to men, or take from women? We do both until there is equality. It's just that simple. If anyone pushes for a female entitlement program, they are being anti-male. If anyone objects to a male entitlement program, they are being anti-male. This is how the feminists do it. This is why they win. This is how we are going to have to do it, or continue losing. Women push for women's reproductive rights, not people's reproductive rights. And when they object to the male birth control pill, they did not object to birth control for people, just objected to it for men. They are neither pro-life or pro-choice. They are pro-woman. They are neither for, nor against, birth control. They are for women and against men. This is how they've always played the game, this is why they have always won, and this is how we must fight. Women do not play hero, self-sacrificer, savior of nations, races, humanity. They leave all that hero bullshit for men. Stop adhering to ideologies whose theoretical goal is the embetterment of humanity, and start focusing on the one and only ideology whose goal is the embetterment of the male sex. Any failure to do this, will put you in direct competition with those who do. If anything I said here offends you, too bad. I'm not here to kiss asses and make friends. I am here to kick asses and take names. I am here to intellectually bitch-slap this movement, trim away the stupidity, to remove the archaic notions, the reactionarism, the primitive thinking, the superstition. There is far too much confusion and downright weakness in the movement. This is apparent with the cowards who cringe and say this idea is bad, because it is similar to what feminists have done. Oh really, feminists? You mean the winners in this gender war? Oh how dare we actually do something the winning team does. If we keep doing that, we might end up succeeding like they did. Oh heaven forbid. I'm tired of this bizarre mentality that feminism is analogous to evil and we must religiously abstain from evil. We must end this cave-dwelling, fear-based thinking. We do what works. I know in this video, and in others, I have shown my fear and distrust of corporate power. But let me tell you, if a proposal helped men in comparison to women, but simultaneously empowered corporations, then so be it. We have to drop our secondary political beliefs. We must put the fair and ethical treatment of the male sex as our highest ideological priority above all other things. We must drop our archaic idealism, and start doing what works. This movement may be born of the anti-feminist conservative reactionary movement, but it has evolved into more than just bellyaching about feminism, and telling feminists to please stop being feminists. The early days of the anti-feminist community, making fun of women's alleged inferiority, and basically bitching that these are pity women need to get back in the kitchen, and trying to say things like ladies, you've been duped, feminism is no good for you, please get back in the kitchen now. Those fear-driven reactionary days are over. We have evolved into a movement whose goal it is to put men first, to think about situations in the context of how does this affect men. In a society where it's taken for granted that women and children first, is a good and godly rule. In that society, the idea that maybe women shouldn't get the life rafts, and that maybe they're not more valuable than men, that notion is revolutionary, radical, and frightening to the Jurassic throwbacks, the chronic reactionary afraid of change. We have left the anti-feminist movement, and have evolved into something unthinkable, a pro-male movement. I say we burn the bridges now, so that we never go back. Bring me equality, or bring me death. You are either 100% pro-male, or an enemy to those who are.